And just one more point.
Yeah.
For the neoliberals who say that the residents of that area deserve what they are getting because they voted for President Donald J. Trump, it is abhorrent. This is about poverty. This is about poor working class white people who are enduring some of the same things that poor working class black people endure, whether it's Flint, Cleveland, or Jackson, Mississippi. And so I want to lay it out that the cultist behavior in politics right now, it is a sin and a shame that when people are suffering to this magnitude, you got people who will fix their mouths, to quote my grandmother, to say that they are getting what they deserve. What they deserve is clean air, clean food, clean water. They deserve relief, both in the short term and also in the long term.
Yes, welcome back. Let me address this before we go into this video. I'm called Ransom if you are new to this channel. Concerning video titles, there is something a lot of people don't understand. There are videos, if you put out the title of the clip, it will not be recommended or you will not be able to monetize. It will show the yellow sign. You will need to change it, adjust it, into different ways, before you can monetize this video. For example, there are videos when I mention white, black on the title, I will not be able to monetize. So when I put out videos here with some kind of titles, you should understand. You all know I don't put out some kind of videos without real meaningful values. So by now, I believe you should understand better why we do like this. Not only me, you will see this in many YouTube channels. Go to Russell Brand, tell me how he can title a video. It means he will not be able to monetize most of his videos. The reason we do like this. Now, taking a look at this video, CNN guests snap on air of a Democrat ignoring suffering of Americans in East Palestine because they voted for Trump. If you look at this guest you just watched, maybe she will never be invited on CNN simply because she spoke out the truth.
Do you have any idea what could have caused the overheating?
That's something we're going to have to look at as part of the investigation. Right now, we're in the fact-finding phase of the investigation, looking for factual information, and so that will be something that we look at.
I asked the head of Norfolk Southern yesterday whether it was true that this train with 150 cars, 20 of which were carrying toxic materials, only had 2 employees and 1 trainee. He said he couldn't answer. Is it true, though?
Yes, the train was staffed by 3 personnel in the locomotive, a locomotive engineer, a conductor, and a trainee that were all in the head end of the locomotive.
And yet, even with the 20 cars with toxic materials, under current safety rules, that train still did not qualify for designation as a high hazard flammable train, which would have gotten it or required at least a newer, safer braking system. So that rule as it stands right now clearly was inadequate for the citizens of East Palestine. Why not add the newer braking system to any train carrying hazardous material, not just those with more than 20 cars of hazardous material?
Well, and the NTSB has looked at electronically controlled pneumatic braking for a number of years, and we did some testing as well. Certainly it would improve safety, but for this investigation and for this derailment, ECP brakes would not have prevented the derailment. The wheel bearing failed on car number 23. So even with ECP brakes, the derailment would have occurred, the fire would have ensued, and the 5 vinyl chloride tank cars would still have to be vented and burned. What it could have done was maybe reduced damage, where a couple of cars could have remained on the tracks, but we're going to do some modeling along with the Federal Railroad Administration to determine just that.
Is there any obvious rule change that would have prevented this?
It's too early to tell. In our analysis phase of the investigation, we'll look at just that. We'll look at what could have prevented this terrible tragedy. And it could be regulation changes. It could be recommendations to Norfolk Southern, to the Department of Transportation, or to rail.
According to this article from the Gateway Pundit, CNN guests dropped truth bomb on Democrat ignoring American suffering in East Palestine because they voted for Trump. Former Democratic Ohio State Senator Nina Turner appeared on CNN State of the Union with Dana Bash along with CNN political commentator David Orban to discuss the recent train derailment in Ohio and whether or not Biden should be challenged for a Democratic nomination for turning a blind eye. During the discussion, Nina Turner slammed the Democrat for politicizing the tragedy in East Palestine and for turning a blind eye to the suffering of the locals because of their support for Trump. The neoliberal who said that the residents of that area deserve what they are getting because they voted for President Trump. This is about poor working class white people who are enduring some of the same things that poor working class black people endure. And so I want to lay out that the cultist behavior in political right now, it is a sin and a shame that when people are suffering to this magnitude, you got people who will say that they are getting what they deserve. What they deserve is clean air, clean food, clean water. They deserve relief both in short terms and also in the long term. She's actually referring to Democrat and some of the view, like George Behar. She said it clear, you are suffering because of who you voted for. This is what she's saying, which is totally insane. You are not supposed to do this. When there is a crisis, look into what is going on and solve the problem. You are the president. It clearly shows he is the president for people that voted for him, which is totally insane.
He's been Secretary of Transportation for 2 years now. How long can you blame the Trump administration for all your failures?
Let me say this. I will take responsibility for how I do my job. It is time for the Trump administration alumni to take responsibility for their deregulation and join us in calling for us all as a country to reverse course.
Okay.
Lay down regulations for a second, because it seems to me that the Republicans are obsessed with this notion of the free market, and they don't like a lot of regulations.
Because it means profit. When you deregulate, you get profit.
But I know.
Part of deregulation,
for example, there were very few plane crashes, thank God. And that's because the industry is highly regulated. We have to pay for regulations and safety standards. Otherwise, where are we? We're all going to go up in flames.
Norfolk Southern gives as much to Democrats as Republicans. It's a very powerful lobby that is trying to block regulation. And this train, to Sarah's point, 2 miles long with 2 full-time employees and a trainee on it.
And they didn't even need to, because the last administration rolled it down to only one worker. They happened to have 2.
One thing I just want to say is I do think this was an unforced error by President Biden. It was 20 days before we had Secretary Buttigieg go down, 10 days before he put out a statement acknowledging it. This is Trump country. He won by 40 points. He is a president for all Americans. I believe that, but he needs to show that he is.